was.
So Scotland face the greatest match in the distinguished history of Scottish football.
It was a fantastic experience. It was priceless, you know, your money couldn't buy it. And that applied to players a lot older than me.
Oh, Billy Bremner!
So many great players don't get anywhere near that. And you're lucky enough to be part of something like that.
Oh, what a save!
It was a group of players who gone well on and off the field. Maybe off the field going too well sometimes.
I don't honestly think that there was a better squad of players that Scotland ever put together for a competition.
No Scottish side has ever gone beyond the opening round of the World Cup.
It was a chance of a lifetime. I would say, looking back in my career, one of the best experiences of my football career.
Sandy Jardine, who's had the match of his life.
We felt that we were one of the best teams in the world at the time and were capable of winning the World Cup.
Back in the summer of 1974, an air of genuine anticipation swept across the nation as Scotland's footballers headed to the World Cup finals in West Germany. It's true. Younger viewers are going to find this hard to believe, but 30 years ago, a Scotland team were considered genuine challengers for the biggest prize in football. 2 years earlier, in 1972, when Lady Luck seemed not to be acting the twisted old witch she usually is with Scotland, Tommy Docherty had fired up the nation with back-to-back wins over Denmark, before announcing he was in love with another. He bailed out for Manchester United. The baton was handed to St Johnstone manager Willie Ormond, who dropped it spectacularly. His debut was the SFA Centenary International against England on February the 14th, 1973. A 5-0 gubbing. A St Valentine's Day massacre. It was shooty in for the English and the headline writers. In fact, Ormond's team won only one of their first 6 matches. It looked as if it would be easier for Scotland to put one man on the moon than 11 in West Germany.
The original team that Doc had put together was a great team. And as I said, Willie came in and obviously had his own ideas.
So for the next squad, things got changed about, and then that's when Willie started to put his stamp on the teams and the people he picked.
Ormond was under pressure. He needed a result, and it came. But from a highly unlikely source. In Scotland's World Cup section, the Danes enjoyed a wonderful night in Copenhagen, holding the group favourites Czechoslovakia to a shock draw. And suddenly, qualification was within Scotland's embrace. A win against Czechoslovakia at Hampden on the 26th of September 1973 would put the Scotland team in the World Cup finals. Scotland had never faced a bigger match. Willie Ormond had a few major calls to make. He pushed the gamble button. First, he brought the King back from exile. And alongside Denis Law's regal presence, he summoned Coventry winger Tommy Hutchison for his debut. Willie had gambled, and Hutchison's number came up.
To play for Scotland was like winning the lottery without buying a ticket. It took me ages to put the jersey on. I just looked at it, it was hanging up, and you're just looking at the number 11, and that you were going to be wearing it.
I always remember there was a fantastic crowd that night. I think it was about 140,000 at Hampden, full house, a night match.
I played in a cup final at Wembley, but it doesn't come anywhere near walking out at Hampden. And the pipe bands are playing as well, which makes it even better.
Scotland started the match well, but then a Czech called Nehoda scored a goal which blew poor Scotland goalie Ali Hunter into international football oblivion.
It's a good one, and it's a goal! And that's disaster for Scotland.
It's an unfortunate mistake with Ali Hunter, but you get the feeling in those days you were on the field that the crowd, as much as yourself, were lifting you to sort of get there.
The bigger the atmosphere, the better, really. And you just feel with the crowd that you can't lose.
The Hampden Roar. It was more like a lending library, but only briefly.
Holton's there, and it's there! Holton scores! That's the one!
I think you'd a feeling even going behind you could equalise, or sometime you're a player in a game you almost can sense, although you're behind, you're going to win that game.
One more goal. Just one more goal. That's all that stood between the Scots and football's promised land. Just one more goal.
Morgan flinging it across. Jordan is there! Jordan scores!
It was my first Scotland goal. That in itself made it a precious goal. To score a goal for your country against anybody is what you want to do.
I think between him scoring and the end of the game seemed to me like an eternity. It just seemed to... And you're always thinking, oh, I hope they don't score.
Referee looking at his watch. And that's it! That is it! Congratulations, Scotland. Well done, boys.
That night was the greatest feeling I've ever known. It was just unbelievable.
When we'd done it, it was just... never take those things away from you. Never.
Remember, we hadn't qualified for World Cup finals for quite some time, so that was a really big night in the Scottish calendar, and turned out one of the big nights in Scottish football in history. It was absolutely fantastic. It was a real sensational atmosphere.
The ovation we got after that game was sensational, because the fans then knew Scotland were going to the World Cup and the supporters were going to go along with us. And it was one of the most memorable nights of my football career. You know, that night we beat Czechoslovakia.
As the team were led on a lap of honour by Captain Billy Bremner, the nation celebrated. And celebrated. And celebrated. West Germany would be Scotland's first finals in 16 years. Could things get any better? Well, funnily enough, on the night Scotland lost the away game in Bratislava, they did get better. A whole lot better. That same night, England needed a win against Poland to make sure they were invited to the World Cup party alongside the Scots, who they'd recently thumped 5-0. After their own game, the Scottish team gathered round the TV back at the hotel to lend the English their support.
We were sitting down in the big lounge watching England versus Poland live as it came in, and obviously England didn't qualify.
We've got to admit it, there was one or two cheers from... Not one or two, I think the whole squad let out a cheer, you know.
The Anglos were more so than the Danny McGrains, myself, and even Kenny at that time.
I would imagine little Billy going back to Leeds would have gave them almighty stick. He'd have loved it, him and Peter.
We nearly pushed it too far at certain times where in training, you know, there was one or two heavy tackles going in because we'd wound them up maybe too much at times.
England never qualified, Wales never qualified, and neither did Ireland, Northern Ireland or the Republic, so...
We had Germany all to ourselves, which was nice.
If you're going to make a splash, it's always better to dive in at the deep end. So the Scots began their preparations for West Germany by playing the hosts, and came within minutes of beating the current European champions and hot favourites for the World Cup. There was a swagger in the Scottish step. Students of our football history will know what happens next. We find ourselves treading in something rather unpleasant. And looking back at the spring of 1974, it was ever thus. In the home international, Scotland lost to Northern Ireland before winning against the Welsh on the Tuesday. So that meant a championship decider against dear old England, who had completed their World Cup preparations by buying a new colour telly and stocking up their fridges with beer. Scotland were in the finals, so it should have been plain sailing. Sailing, certainly. Plain, hardly. 4 days before the England game, the team went out for a light refreshment in Largs. And so began the tale of the wee man and the sea.
Well, the Jimmy Johnstone and the boat stories go down in Scottish folklore.
We'd beaten Wales, and we were allowed a night out basically.
And as usual, one drink leads to two, leads to three, leads to four.
I don't know when I left about 4 o'clock or something.
And we were just walking along the seafront, and wee Jimmy Johnstone was there, Dennis Law was there, Joe Jordan.
Glad to say I wasn't there.
And wee Jimmy's a really good singer, and he was singing away, walking along the seafront. And for some reason he got in one of the wee rowing boats.
With no oars.
I just went up and I just gave a wee kick to the boat.
And the boat just drifted. And of course it went so quickly.
But Jimmy's still singing away, not got a care in the world.
Michael rowed the boat ashore and gave a sing. Very soon they realised he was going further and further and out, and there was a little bit of panic set into the squad.
So how are we going to get him in? So somebody had to phone the Coast Guard.
So eventually the Coast Guard bring Jimmy back.